Okay, welcome to the first catch and cook of 2020. And here you're watching me reel up my first walleye ever. I've never seen one in person. I've only watched some YouTube videos and asked a couple questions on the forums. And there you go. First new species in a very long time. Um, I was told they don't fight very hard. That was kind of an understatement. The water is very cold, but very cool looking fish. I was playing dead a little bit. Obviously, that one was not a keeper. They have to be 18 inches. So here I'm jigging in about 55 feet of water. There's no structure. It's just a flat mud basin type thing. And I'm using a 1/8 ounce jig head to a 4-inch Kitech shad impact. Just sort of become my go-to bait, right? Any fish that eats smaller fish, that kind of middle profile is going to work as long as you're working it the right way and in the right water column. So here I'm just doing very small pops off the bottom. The water temperature is like 37 and letting it fall back on slack line. So sort of like fluke jigging, but just on a smaller scale. I'm using 6-pound fluoroleader connected via loop knot to the jig head. So pretty finesse. And from what I understand, that's the way to go with walleye. Okay, so that fish took it on the drop. I didn't feel anything in 50 plus feet. I just saw my line kind of tick. And that's how 99% of game fish will take a jig if you're hopping it on the bottom. So in terms of locating these fish, this is about 3 hours into the day. And I've marked no fish on the bottom, although I did mark a lot of bait. So what I did was I went to the largest point on the lake, and that's not a bad strategy on a new body of water. I mean, this is my first time here, and I just jigged my way from shallow to deep. Positioning my kayak so I'm facing the contour line, so I'm parallel to them, and I'm just firing casts 20 feet, jig it back 30, 40, and I found these fish at 50. So I ended up catching 3 that day. They're all in about this 40-minute window, and they were all at 55 feet. It's a very cool looking fish. That tall dorsal fin and the coloration almost looked like something from Australia. But this one, as you'll see, kind of spat up his swim bladder a little bit, and I I am kind of curious as to how these fish taste. They have a reputation for being one of the finest eating freshwater species, so this one's coming home with me. As usual, we bleed all our fish, and this one took a deep cut in the gill, and then here I'm just letting it bleed out. Okay, so on to the cooking. This is the following day. The fish was kept on ice, and you're gonna see how well it bled out. Anyway, we're gonna make a very basic stir fry, and stir frying at home is very different from stir frying in a professional Chinese kitchen. You're basically pan frying the ingredients separately and then combining it all back together at the end. And you'll see what I mean. It's the first time I'm filleting walleye, and they are anatomically unremarkable, just like any other round fish. There is a row of rib bones that you can cut through, which I did here, or you can cut around them. and a row of pin bones that you can remove with tweezers or cut them out like I did here. You see this fish bled out beautifully. Now, certain species, especially saltwater species, we would retain the head and the rag, make some kind of stock. But with freshwater fish, and this is cultural too, our family are just not used to eating that much freshwater fish. So, not quite as adventurous with this. In any case, I rinsed this off in fresh water. No need for any kind of saltwater rinse because this is a freshwater fish. And moisture control is very important when you're dealing with any kind of protein. So you want to make sure that the fish is completely dry. And if you're storing it in the fridge, you will wrap it up in paper towels. So for the stir fry, we're cutting these into pretty large pieces. If you cut them too small, you're going to lose a lot of texture. And that's very important, just the mouthfeel. So here I'm pre-seasoning with 2 big pinches of kosher salt. And this will penetrate a little bit. It's only going to be in the fridge for about 15 minutes, but it'll tighten up the meat just a tad, and it'll give the surface of the fish sort of a sticky kind of layer, and that's going to help it soak up some of the cornstarch that we're going to apply later on. So once again, we're going to put these pieces on fresh paper towels and lay another piece over it, roll everything up like a big burrito, and stick it in the fridge. Anytime you salt down a piece of meat or fish, it's going to pull a lot of moisture out. So once again, you have to control that moisture. You don't want it to just sit in a Ziploc bag. That's never a good idea. Alright, so now we can move on to our vegetable prep, which is very straightforward. Here I'm thinly slicing some ginger and then slicing them into small strips. Next up is 5 or 6 bulbs of shallots, just also very thinly sliced. And after that would be some scallion. The white of the scallion. The greens we're going to slice later for garnish. So last up is garlic that we're going to smash and roughly chop. Now the 3 Chinese aromats that's present in almost any stir-fry dish are ginger, garlic, and scallion. So I like shallots because I feel it adds quite a bit of depth, and that's also, I guess, part of my French cooking background. So the green of the scallion here we're just going to reserve for garnish at the very end. And a couple more ingredients goes into this dish. One is the red dried chili peppers, and also we're going to need some rice wine and some dark soy with a touch of brown sugar, and that we're just going to mix on the go. So here the fish came out of the fridge. We're going to dust them in corn flour and cornstarch. You can use regular flour too, but cornstarch gives it slightly crispier shell. And in the pan I have grapeseed oil, which is a high smoke point, very neutral fat. And I'm just going to lay the pieces down. I'm going to remember the first piece I laid down, do them in clockwise or counterclockwise order. And when you go flip them, you can do it in the right sequence. So fresh fish is not going to take very long, and these are also going back into the pan later on just to finish cooking. So I would take them to about 80% here. Don't overcrowd the pan. So this is a second batch. Alright, so these fish are going to go drain on a bed of paper towels, and we're going to start the actual stir fry. And stir frying is all about layering flavors, right? You want to build them up. So the first thing you add to the pan are the dried chili peppers and ginger slices, right? Now the oil is going to extract all that flavor. These two ingredients would take the longest, so that's why they went in first. Then the shallots. The shallots will start to release their sugars a little bit. You want to cook them until they turn just slightly translucent. And then you add the rest of your vegetables, which is your scallion whites and garlic. Everything you put in the pan, you add just a pinch of salt. That's going to get it going. It's going to draw the moisture out. And now you have the actual ingredients plus the oil that is infused with all these very savory flavors. And that forms the foundation of your stir-fry dish. This is the same for chicken, beef, pork, anything. The basic steps are pretty much the same. Alright, so here we deglaze with a little bit of rice wine, and you want to cook the alcohol off. So anytime you're adding alcohol to a pan, it's takes a couple minutes. Once that's done, here I'm mixing the dark soy and brown sugar. And once that goes in the pan, because there's not a lot of sauce, the fish goes in immediately. Okay. Right there. And now you gently fold in that sauce with the fish, and the cornstarch we added to the fish is going to help the sauce kind of cling to the surface. This is not a very wet, saucy kind of dish, but it's very clean. It's very clean on the palate. There's no cornstarch slurry. There's not a lot of reduction involved. And this fish turned out to be quite delicate. And I think we made the right decision going with a very basic, dry kind of stir fry. Alright, so the plating is very straightforward. It's a Chinese dish. We usually serve family style. So just get it in a plate. Make sure you clean the rim of the plate. And aside from that, we're going to put some green scallion on top that we sliced earlier. And that's pretty much the dish. As usual, my cousin is going to be our guinea pig. This is your first freshwater fish since the lake trout.
Oh my gosh, look at the flake.
Nice.
Right? Oh my god.
Is it good?
Mm-hmm.
Does it taste like freshwater fish? Mm-hmm. And as usual, he hams it up a little bit, which I do appreciate. Again, freshwater fish is just not something that we consume a lot of, if ever. So this walleye turned out to be surprisingly good. Like I said, very delicate, good fat content, no off or muddy taste that some freshwater species do pick up depending on the body of water they come out of. In any case, I hope you enjoyed that. If you like what you see, please do subscribe, comment, give the video a like. I hate asking you guys to do that, but it's really the only way I get any kind of feedback. So, thanks again, and I'll catch you on the next one.